Used to work the closing shift at a small restaurant just outside Quezon City. It wasn't anything fancy, just a late-night Filipino comfort spot that stayed open longer than most places in the area. People came in for tapsilog, bulalo, or just a place to sit after a long night out. But after what happened one week in July, I quit without even asking for my final pay. The first strange thing happened on a Tuesday. We were about 30 minutes from closing. The place was mostly empty, just one table finishing up near the window. I was wiping down the counter while my coworker, Liza, counted the register. That's when the bell above the door rang. I looked up automatically, expecting another late customer. But when I glanced at the entrance, no one was there. The door was still slightly open, swaying like someone had just walked in. "Did you see that?" I asked. Liza didn't even look up. "Wind," she said casually. There wasn't any wind. The air inside the restaurant felt heavy, like the kind before a storm, but outside, everything was still. I walked over to the door and stepped outside. The street was quiet. A few tricycles passed in the distance, and a dog barked somewhere down the road. No one nearby. When I came back in, the door slowly closed behind me on its own. That should have been enough to make me uneasy, but it wasn't. Not yet. Things got worse the next night. Wednesday started normal. Same routine. Same slow trickle of customers. Around 11:45 p.m., we locked the front door and switched the sign to closed. Only staff inside now. It was just me, Liza, and our cook, Mang Ernesto. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when I heard footsteps out in the dining area. At first, I thought maybe Liza was still cleaning tables, but these footsteps were slow, deliberate, like someone pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. I stepped out of the kitchen and looked toward the dining area. No one was there, but I could still hear it. Footsteps, right behind the counter. I froze. "Liza?" I called out. No answer. The footsteps stopped instantly. That silence hit harder than the noise. I walked over to the counter, my heart beating faster than I wanted to admit. There was nothing there. No movement, no sign anyone had been walking around. Then I heard Liza's voice from the storage room. "I'm in here." So it wasn't her. I didn't tell anyone what I heard. I just went back to the kitchen and tried to convince myself it was my imagination. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Thursday was when everything started to feel wrong. Not just strange, but wrong. From the moment I stepped into the restaurant, something felt off. The air smelled slightly sour, like spoiled food. Even though everything had been cleaned the night before, Liza noticed it too. "Do you smell that?" she asked. "Yeah." Mang Ernesto shrugged. "Probably the garbage outside." But the smell wasn't coming from outside. It was strongest near table 7, a small two-seater near the back corner of the restaurant. No matter how much we wiped it down, sprayed it, or aired the place out, the smell wouldn't go away. By 10 p.m., we had our last customers leave. And then it happened. The chair at table 7 moved. Not dramatically, not violently. Just slid back slightly, like someone had pulled it out to sit. We all saw it. No one said anything for a few seconds. Then Liza forced a laugh. "Okay, that's not funny." "I didn't do that," I said. "Me neither." We both looked at Mang Ernesto. He was staring at the chair, completely still. "I'm in the kitchen," he said quietly. I didn't touch anything. The chair slowly creaked forward again, like someone had just stood up. That was the moment I felt it, the shift in the atmosphere. We weren't alone. Friday night was the worst. I almost didn't go in. Something in my gut told me to stay home. But I needed the money, so I ignored it. Big mistake. The night started busier than usual, which actually helped distract me. People laughing, talking, eating, it made everything feel normal again. Until around midnight. A man walked in just before we locked the doors. He didn't say anything, just nodded and sat down at table 7. I felt my stomach drop immediately. That table. The smell was gone now, like it had been waiting for him. I grabbed a menu and walked over, trying to act normal. "Good evening, sir. What would you like?" I stopped mid-sentence. The man wasn't looking at me. He was staring straight ahead, completely still. "Sir?" I said again. No response. Up close, something felt off about him. His skin looked pale, not sickly, just wrong. Like the color had been drained from him. His clothes were slightly damp, like he had been caught in the rain, but it hadn't rained that night. "Sir, are you okay?" I asked. Slowly, he turned his head toward me. The movement was stiff, unnatural. And his eyes, they didn't focus on me. They looked through me. "I've been waiting," he said. His voice was low and dry, like he hadn't spoken in a long time. "For what?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "For my order." I swallowed. "What would you like?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned forward slightly. "You already know." I didn't. But for some reason, my mind went blank, completely blank, like I couldn't think of a single dish on the menu. I'll be right back," I said, stepping away. I went straight to Liza. "Can you take table 7? I whispered. She frowned. "Why?" "Just, please." She rolled her eyes but walked over. I watched from behind the counter as she approached the man. She smiled, said something, and then her expression changed. The same way mine had. She stood there for a few seconds, completely still. Then she slowly backed away and returned to me. "I'm not serving him," she said. "Why?" She shook her head. "Something's wrong." Before we could say anything else, we heard a loud bang. We both turned. The man had slammed his hand on the table. Every head in the restaurant turned toward him. "I've been waiting," he repeated. This time louder, more aggressive. Mang Ernesto came out of the kitchen. "What's going on?" "That guy?" I started. But when we looked back, the chair was empty. The man was gone. The front door was still locked. We searched the entire restaurant. Bathroom, kitchen, storage room. Nothing. No sign he had ever been there. But the chair at table 7 was pulled out again. And this time, it didn't move back. After we closed that night, none of us spoke much. We just cleaned in silence, trying to pretend everything was normal. Around 1 a.m., I was mopping near table 7 when I heard something behind me. A whisper. So quiet I almost missed it. "I'm still here." I froze. The voice was right next to my ear. I turned slowly. No one. But the smell was back. Stronger than ever. Rotten. Damp. Like something had been buried and left too long. Then I noticed something on the table. A wet handprint. Not just any handprint. It looked swollen, distorted, like the skin had been waterlogged. And it was fresh. Dripping. That was it for me. I dropped the mop and walked straight out. I didn't even clock out. Didn't say goodbye. I just left. A few days later, I went back during the day to collect my things. The restaurant was closed. Not just for the day, permanently. There was a sign on the door. Closed until further notice. I called Liza. She didn't answer. I never heard from her again. Months later, I found out what happened. A friend of mine who knew the owner told me the truth. Years ago, before the restaurant opened, that building used to be something else. A small roadside eatery. There had been an incident. A man came in late one night just before closing. He sat at a table in the back, ordered food, but the staff ignored him. They were tired, wanted to go home. They told him to come back the next day. The man refused to leave. They got into an argument, and eventually, they forced him out. What they didn't know was that the man had been in an accident earlier that night. He had been injured, disoriented, possibly dying, and that restaurant was the last place he went looking for help. He collapsed outside, and by the time anyone found him, he was already dead. They say he never stopped waiting. Even now, I avoid that street. But sometimes, when I pass by late at night, I swear I can see someone sitting inside that empty building, at a table in the back, perfectly still, waiting to be served. I worked at a 24-hour diner just off Interstate 81 in Pennsylvania for about 8 months. It wasn't the kind of place people planned to visit. It was where you ended up when you had nowhere else to go. Truckers, night shift workers, people driving cross-country, and sometimes people who didn't really look like they belonged anywhere. The place was called Maple Diner. Nothing special about it. Old booths, flickering neon sign outside, and a bell above the door that rang every time someone came in. I always worked the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Most nights were quiet, too quiet. But there was one week in November I still think about sometimes, and I wish I didn't. It started on a Monday. Around 2:30 a.m., a man walked in alone. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was how he stood just inside the entrance after the bell rang. He didn't look around, didn't sit down, just stood there, like he was waiting for something. I was behind the counter pouring coffee when I noticed him. "Hey man, sit anywhere," I called out. He didn't respond, just stood there. For a few seconds, I thought maybe he didn't hear me, but then he slowly turned his head toward me. The movement was stiff, like his neck didn't bend properly. Then he walked to a booth in the far corner, the one by the window, and sat down. I grabbed a menu and went over. "Can I get you anything to drink?" I asked. He didn't even glance at the menu. "Coffee," he said. His voice sounded dry, like he hadn't spoken in a while. "Sure." I poured a cup and brought it over. He didn't touch it, didn't even look at it, just stared out the window. For the next 20 minutes, he didn't move, didn't blink, didn't drink the coffee, didn't acknowledge me at all. Eventually, I got busy with another customer and forgot about him, until I looked back at the booth. He was gone. Just gone. The coffee was still there, untouched, and the door never opened. I told myself he must have left when I wasn't looking. That's what made the most sense. But something about it didn't sit right with me. The next night, Tuesday, things got worse. Same time, 2:30 a.m. The bell rang. I looked up immediately, and there he was. Same guy, standing in the doorway. Same posture, same stillness. This time, I felt something cold run down my spine. He walked to the same booth, sat down the same way. I didn't even wait. I just brought him coffee without asking. "Here you go," I said, trying to sound normal. He didn't respond, didn't look at me, just stared out the window again. I tried to brush it off, but I couldn't stop watching him. Something about the way he sat there, it wasn't right. People shift, they blink, they breathe. He didn't. At one point, I walked past the booth pretending to wipe a table behind him. I glanced at his reflection in the window. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There was no reflection. The window showed the street outside, the passing headlights, but not him. I stopped walking. "Hey," I said quietly. No response. I turned back toward him. He was still there. But when I looked back at the window, still nothing. No reflection. I stepped away immediately. Went straight to the kitchen where my coworker Jake was. "You need to come look at this," I said. "What?" "Just come here." We both walked out. I pointed at the booth. Empty. The man was gone again. The coffee cup was still there. Full. Jake laughed it off, said I was seeing things. But I knew what I saw. By Wednesday, I didn't want to go in. But I needed the job. So I went. And I told myself if the guy showed up again, I'd just ignore it. Pretend he wasn't there. 2:30 a.m. The bell rang. I didn't even look this time. I just kept wiping the counter. But I could feel it. That presence. Like someone was standing just inside the door, watching. After a few seconds, I heard footsteps. Slow, dragging, heading toward the booth. I kept my eyes down. Didn't want to see him. Didn't want to confirm it. But then I heard something new. A chair scraping loudly across the floor. Not just being pulled out, dragged, like someone was forcing it. I looked up without thinking. The chair at the booth was moving, on its own, sliding out slowly, then stopping, like someone had just sat down. But the booth was empty, completely empty. I dropped the rag in my hand. "Jake," I called out. No answer. I turned toward the kitchen. Empty. He wasn't there, but I had just heard him a few minutes ago. "Jake," I said again. Still nothing. Then I heard it. From behind me. A voice. Low. Right next to my ear. "You didn't serve me." I spun around. The man was sitting in the booth. Right behind me. Closer than he should have been. I hadn't heard him move. Hadn't seen him walk there. He was just suddenly there. Looking directly at me this time. For the first time. His eyes were wrong. Cloudy. Like something was covering them from the inside. I gave you coffee," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "That wasn't my order," he replied. "What do you want?" I asked. He leaned forward slightly. The overhead light flickered. "I want what I came for." "What's that?" He didn't answer, just stared at me. And then, he smiled. Slowly. Too slowly. Like the movement wasn't natural. The lights went out for a split second. Just a flicker. When they came back on, the booth was empty again. I quit the next morning. Didn't even finish my shift. A few days later, I went back during the day to return my uniform. The manager was there. I told him everything. Every detail. He didn't laugh. Didn't look surprised. He just sighed. "You're not the first," he said. "What do you mean?" He leaned against the counter. "That booth," he said. "Back corner. We've had complaints." "About what?" He hesitated. Then said, "About 10 years ago, there was a guy. Came in late one night. Sat at that exact booth. I felt my chest tighten. He ordered food. Steak and eggs, I think. But the kitchen was closing. Cook refused to make it." "What happened?" "He got angry, real angry. Started yelling, caused a scene." "And?" "The staff told him to leave." "Did he?" The manager shook his head slowly. "No." Apparently the argument escalated. The cook came out from the kitchen. They got into a physical fight. It didn't last long, but it ended badly. The man hit his head on the edge of the table when he fell. Hard. He didn't get back up. "He died?" I asked. "Right there," the manager said, "at that booth." I didn't say anything. My hands felt cold. "They covered it up as an accident," he continued. "But some people say he never left. I never went back after that. But here's the part that still messes with me. About a month later, I was driving late at night, couldn't sleep. Decided to take a drive down the interstate. without really thinking about it. I passed by the diner. The neon sign was still on. Open 24 hours. I slowed down as I drove past, and I looked inside. There was someone sitting in the back corner booth, alone, perfectly still. And for a second, I could have sworn he was looking right at me. I sped up and didn't look back. But I haven't driven that road since, and I never will again.